Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Operators Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Emma Schermer Tamir of Marketing by Emma. How are you doing, Emma?
Hello, I'm good. I'm good. Can't complain. I can't believe that we're here on the last day of September in Q3. This year has just flown by.
Yep. And here we are again. Q4 madness is starting. So,
It's it's here. It's chomping at the bit.
yeah, I think we're all feeling it. Everybody's preparing. Let's see what Amazon throws at us this year. On my side, I'm just dealing with a lot of getting inventory in for everybody and making sure that people are ready with ad budgets and plans and everything like that. What are you kind of seeing on your side?
Yeah, well, also Prime Big Deal Days is literally around the corner. So just diving in head first to the holidays and making sure that everything is locked and loaded. And we're big proponents of not waiting until the last minute to make changes, because in the event that something goes wrong, you do not want to be trying to get your listing live or fixed with the holiday spending in full swing. So we're kind of, in that push of like, if you want to make things happen before holiday spending really starts, which I think everybody's also forecasting is going to be starting much earlier this year and be more conscious to deals, then it's kind of, I wouldn't say your opportunity has passed, but there's not a lot of time left.
So actually, there's something I wanted to ask you. Usually I start with, learning a little bit more about Marketing by Emma and kind of what brought you there. So I don't want to jump ahead, but there's one question while we're on topic. A lot of people go kind of back and forth on like, should you optimize content for specific holidays, right? Like right now we got, let's say Halloween coming up, right? And then it's going to be Thanksgiving and then Christmas. Like, is it really worthwhile to go into your listings and optimize it for those like pumpkins or, Christmas decorations on your hero image or whatever?
Well, I would think of it in a few different ways. First of all, anytime that anyone ever gives you a blanket answer about strategy, you should be very skeptical, because not all products are going to follow the same pieces of advice. And so I would say first things first is be thoughtful about what it is you're selling and how seasonality might come into play with how customers are engaging and thinking about it. Now, another element to be thinking about with that is if you were selling in a physical retail space, you would be merchandising your space to be seasonally relevant to the customers. And so there are ways that you can still bring in those seasonal elements, even if it's not always holiday forward. But, preparing for the holidays isn't just putting a few photoshopped pictures of gift wrapping or Christmas trees in your listing and calling it a day. You really need to be thinking about what makes, if your product even is giftable, what makes it a great gift. And also thinking about who is actually making that purchase, because if you are really leaning hard into the gifting strategy, then that person isn't necessarily the end user of the product, unless you can use this as an opportunity to get them to purchase multiples and then keep one for themselves. But if the end user is different, then also the emotional elements that you're speaking to, they kind of change, because you're bringing another person into the fold. And so you really need to be thinking through all of these things. And if you are just simply, using your images, putting in a few keywords saying what a great gift this makes for Christmas, you might see a bump, but you're not going to really unlock the full potential as you would if you do some of that deeper work to really communicate why this makes such a great gift, to give that gift giver the confidence. Because, buying gifts for people is simultaneously something that is fun and exciting, but it's also stressful. We always have that feeling of like, oh, I think they're going to like it, but I don't really know. And then if it's an added level of it's a brand that you're not familiar with, how embarrassing would it be to give something that is not good quality, is not going to be that perfect gift that you envision? And so giving the gift giver that reassurance and that building that trust with them in some ways becomes even more important, because they don't want to be the person that gives the gift and then the receiver is having to plaster on a fake smile and be like, oh, I love it so much. Thank you.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And so you come from a writing background generally, right? So you were doing a lot of content creation, and that kind of led to Marketing by Emma. But Marketing by Emma is more than just, I mean, your offering is more than just writing. It's really just like that whole creative
Yes.
process. Okay.
Yeah, so nothing exists in a vacuum, and there are many different elements that all need to work together to ensure that your content is optimized to convert as many ideal customers as possible. And so what goes into that is the writing, which also is capturing a lot of different elements, because there's a psychology piece, there's the understanding the nuances of whatever platform that you are selling on and how customers engage there. There's also the SEO component, which now isn't just factoring in the more traditional style of SEO, but we're also needing to navigate how that is evolving with the addition of AI chat interfaces, changing how some people are searching and evaluating and deciding what products to buy. And then you also have the visuals creative piece of how does everything that a customer is seeing all work together to tell a very compelling story that is going to make them feel like this product is the absolute best fit for them. And on Amazon, that's even more complicated, because unlike your own website where somebody is a captive audience, the customer has access to hundreds potentially of other near identical products. And so you need to really have a strong understanding of how you fit into the competitive landscape and what makes you uniquely different, and then be able to communicate that in a really clear way so that it's obvious to customers. Because otherwise, if you just look like all of your other competitors, if you're writing similar things and you're designing your A+ content in a similar way, then you're almost forcing the customers to either choose based on the one with the most reviews or the one with the cheapest price.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't win on either of those things, then your creative needs to be even stronger to be able to really put up a good fight against some pretty strong headwinds.
And are you guys using any of these AI tools like Gemini or any of these kind of models to come up with ideas, or even, create some of these assets like lifestyle photos and things like that? It seems like these models are getting so good compared to like a year or two ago, even the video models. So it's almost like, what's the point of even doing some of these photo shoots? I don't think we're quite there of like, let's not do photo shoots entirely. But for people who are just starting out or have a small budget, it seems like the go-to.
Yeah, it's certainly in contrast to what you could get a few years ago, which was a really poorly photoshopped image where like that spatula is so obviously not hanging on the wall in the kitchen, or
Yeah.
that child is not really a live model in that image, and like even an untrained eye that was very clear to it is light years better. I still do see a lot of space for real content created by real people, and photo shoots, and the value in that. I think that can oftentimes even be like a really powerful differentiator for you, in contrast to even though AI imagery and video has come a long way, you can always still look at something now and feel like, I think what my finger on it, but there's just something here that doesn't feel right, or like they're drinking a drink and then you realize that like the cap is still on the bottle, just like
Yeah.
little details like that. That if you're just glancing at it, it's not a big deal. And like I said, it's certainly better than nothing. But if you even have those raw photos that you can use to then enhance or make more seasonal with AI, I think there's much more value in that than just trying to work solely with AI. But to take a step back and to really address your question of how we use it and integrate it. So we don't actually create the image assets. We have partners that we work with who do beautiful jobs with that. We're creating more of the creative architecture so that everything is aligned. And so then your designer or photographer, whether they are doing a full shoot or whether they are doing more of that editing and refining work, they understand the direction that they need to be taking things in order to make sure that everything is working together and really telling a cohesive and convincing story.
Okay. So basically, it's sort of like if you're building a house, you would first go to the architect and then
Exactly.
work together to come up with a plan, a blueprint, and then you're passing that on to the people who can actually look at that blueprint and say, okay, let's do this Photoshop, let's make these infographics, let's do things this way.
Exactly. And then this even serves as a really great plan for your advertising strategy to use, because ideally your advertising strategy is not a separate thing from your product page. They should be working together so that when somebody sees an ad for your product, it's telling that same story that then is going to be continued when they click into your product page. Otherwise, if there's something if any kind of misalignment, it's not always something that a customer is going to be able to like put their finger on and say what's going on, but it might be just enough to create a moment of friction or disconnect. And when you do that, you've lost the customer, and it can be really subtle but very easy to do. And so it is so important that you're thinking big picture with everything. Also your social strategy, every single thing that you're doing, how you're interacting with customers, how you're showing up in the world, you want to make sure that that's all orbiting around the same concept and idea, and that it is clearly communicated through all of these different avenues.
And have you ever had a situation where somebody would come to you and they need this blueprint, they're kind of launching on Amazon or they're looking to change things, and you actually see after all your analysis that there simply isn't a fit on the marketplace, right? Because I mean, that's a very real thing where there's just like there's an addressable market and they're just like there's no space for you. Or would you say that there's always an angle that you can kind of play at to try to make a fit?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say it kind of, there's multiple reasons why you might want to be on Amazon, right? And so sometimes being on Amazon is also just a protective measure, because if you're there, then it means that you're protecting yourself against resellers from coming in and either knocking off your product, which you don't have the same brand protections if you're not on the marketplace as if you do, or just jacking up the prices, buying it on your website, and then reselling it on Amazon. So sometimes there are reasons beyond just whether it can truly be like a very powerful sales channel for you. Now, traditionally, we've seen that inventions or really innovative new products tend to struggle on Amazon, especially in the early days before there's a level of awareness from the customer side, because Amazon at its core is a search platform. A customer goes onto Amazon not to browse oftentimes, but really because they have a specific search intent that they're going on to Amazon for. I need a new pair of sneakers for the gym. I need new trash bags. It's things like that. And then maybe they see other things along the way, or they remember that there's other things that they want to purchase. But if they don't know to search for it, then it might be quite difficult to gain traction, unless there is a lot of keyword volume that is similar enough to what you're selling, or more solution focused, that if you had a good advertising strategy, you might be able to overcome some of that. And then there's also situations where, it's just either very expensive for what it is that you're selling. If you sell a very large, bulky item and you don't have the capacity to do your own fulfillment, there's different reasons like that where the profitability might be difficult. But ultimate, or it's a very flooded market. And so if you don't have the budget to be able to be investing in advertising, then it's going to be just very, very, very difficult to be able to be competitive, especially in beauty and supplements. I mean, I'm sure you're very familiar with that and probably encounter those kinds of conversations even more frequently than I do.
Yeah, especially with the new invention thing. I mean, it's like somebody's coming so excited, right, with their new invention. I just came up with the best thing, and it might be the best thing. But it's true where if it's kind of drifted too far away from what people are actually coming on Amazon to solve a problem for, then yeah, how do you get any kind of traction? It's like you said, the only thing that we could have really done there is advertise on keywords that are kind of similar, or show up on competitor listings that are also very similar. So somebody came up with, they identify that there's a problem, for example, with a brush for your grill, where most brushes, they give you like the micro metals that like go into the grill, and you cook the food on and it gets inside. Most people are not even aware of that being a problem. And that's the issue with Amazon. It's very difficult to actually educate people. That has to happen off of the platform. So that's great for TikTok or Instagram or any of these kind of more like info-based channels, and then funnel people into Amazon once they already know that they need it. But to get that awareness on Amazon is very hard. 100%. And also, what's the biggest thing that you guys are really seeing that is, if, across all the accounts that you've seen, someone comes to you, they need some help. What do you see people making the biggest mistakes on? Like, what is the number one thing that people are like, they're doing it and you're just seeing it consistently, and it's like a quick tweak and it makes a world of a difference? Is there anything like that? Or really it's like most of the cases, it's like there's a big overhaul, or just the angle's not right?
I would say, I mean, I feel like I just saw like 20 listings like flash before my eyes, and like, which one do I choose as the most egregious or common mistake? And if I really had to choose one thing that applies from a product page, which on the surface looks amazing, to one that is the worst I've ever seen, one of the most consistent mistakes that I see, I've sort of already spoken to a bit, which is a failure to differentiate.
Mhm.
And it's using this very generic language that is not able to convincingly persuade someone why your solution is better than all the other solutions that are out there. And that puts a lot of pressure on a business, because in order to be able to be competitive with that strategy, you're probably going to have really low prices. And you're probably going to have to be more aggressive with your advertising budget. And it's not that you don't have to be thoughtful about either of those things when you have a really strong differentiation strategy, but you have more wiggle room with some of those things. So like, if you can differentiate yourself in a really compelling way, you may be able to justify a significantly higher price point, because if somebody understands that this is a specific solution for them that is not going to be as great if they were to go with any of your competitors, then they can justify spending more money on that than something that is a more generic solution. And so when we're in this environment where profitability is much harder to come by these days, and we have a lot of different challenges that are being navigated in the world of e-commerce right now. And there is so much change happening so quickly and so much uncertainty from all these different angles. That's very significant. And so it's surprising to me because it does take some additional thought and time and effort. But I think the main thing that keeps people from leaning into that is fear. Because ultimately, when we choose to really differentiate our product and our brand, we're kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is who our product is for, and this is maybe who isn't the best fit for our product. And that can feel very limiting and like the opposite of growth. But so often it's the opposite is what transpires, because it's through that clarity that you're then able to increase your ability to convert. And you're also able to start to have really enthusiastic customers who are then leaving positive reviews and going on to their social media platform of choice and talking about it. And that's how you can really then build up momentum that's going to be so much more of a slog if you're just blending in and really not taking that deliberate decision to be different.
And can every product be different, like even commodities or just like basic? Like I'm thinking 100 pack of plastic thank you bags. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my product, right? Like I'm buying it from China. Chinese sellers are selling the same thing. There's like 1,000 listings of 100 pack of plastic thank you bags, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can take that and say, all right, like what are we going to do here to make you stand out, to make you different? And we can maybe limit the type of audience that we want to go for, specifically delis, right? And we only market to, yeah, like I don't know, I'm just making it up. Like how would you approach that? And
Well, okay. So I would actually take a different approach, because in my mind, where I instantly went is you're saying 100 bags, which if it's a restaurant, probably 100 bags is a small amount.
yeah,
Like
it's
they
not
would be
enough.
buying in bulk. And so 100 bags, not that much. Maybe it's like a fun bag for like a birthday party party favor kind of thing that's like a little bit different and tongue-in-cheek. And so maybe you don't even go the traditional route of trying to market it as just like thank you bags for restaurants, but you're going more towards the consumer and thinking about creative ways that they can use those bags, that maybe it's like more of a funny thing. And then maybe that also inspires you to print some other types of things on your bag that are a little bit jokey. And so you have some other types, and then you're like, oh wait, but this is like, people love fun, like little gag gifts. And so let me also sell napkins that are along the same line. And so it's sometimes it's thinking outside of the box, which is that, or I guess this time it's outside of the bag. Sorry.
Nice one.
And I just love a corny joke. Anyway, back on track. It's and that's just one direction that you could take it, right? But that would be a way of looking at, okay, there is this very crowded space. There is nothing unique about my bag, but maybe there is a use case for a group of customers that also like would never want to buy 1,000 thank you bags. And then of course you would want to make sure that all of your content is showing it in more social situations, not in restaurant situations, and showing it in that kind of way. Maybe you're somebody that like loves hosting dinners, and you always give leftovers to your friends. Like there's fun ways that you could kind of play with that idea. Otherwise, if you still wanted to stay in the more like food service world, then I would be thinking about who is buying them in smaller quantities. So maybe it's people that are just getting started at local markets, and they're, you know, they have a cottage food license where they're able to make jams or breads in their kitchen. And so they don't have the space and the storage for many bags, but they're also, this is just a pet project that they don't really know where it's going to go. And so then that becomes a whole different story that you're telling through your content, and the kinds of things that you're showing people putting into the bags, and the kinds of environments that they're in, and people walking around, you know, a farmer's market versus walking out of a restaurant. And so that's how you can begin to sometimes think about those things. And you see here that in either case, it wasn't really about the bags at all. It was about who was the end user of those bags, and how can you reflect back to them that this is going to be a great solution for their needs. And one way that you do that is just mirroring how they're going to use it, because then it makes it much easier for them to visualize themselves with that product, rather than just seeing like a basic picture. And then they're like, oh, I don't know, like maybe I'll start baking bread next year, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, if there's so much competition, you're not going to go after the generic keyword plastic bags, right? You're going to probably go, and like many people, they're looking, like you said, to solve a problem. So they're going to come in and they're going to look for that long tail, really specific use case. Plastic bag for party favors, plastic bag for farmer's market, right? And then, okay, that's our niche. And if you can see with keyword volume and search demand and everything that that's enough of an addressable market, then you go after that. And I've even seen people send in the same product across multiple SKUs,
Yeah.
and they'll just create different use cases for every SKU, and even variate them sometimes, or keep them separate. And so there's like a bit of a split test there, right? Or you can just keep them all alive if they're all selling. And it's funny because you're really just selling the same product over and over again. You're just slapping a different ASIN label on it or whatever UPC code. So
Yeah,
Emma,
I mean, everybody has decision fatigue. We are
yeah,
confronted with making so many choices all the time. And Amazon is not the easiest platform to shop on from a customer's perspective, because there are so many different options that you are being served. And so the more that you can make that easier for the customer, the better. And so sometimes it is really just like positioning the same product to speak to different groups of customers, so that you're making that choice easy and obvious for them. And it's, you know, it doesn't work for every category, obviously, but like there is great value in situations where that might be something that if you're just trying to go over the collective customer base, then you're going to have to be far too generic. And instead you could create a few separate approaches that speak to different buckets of customers and have much more success that way.
Emma, if somebody wanted to get one of these blueprints, or just kind of chat with you about their brand, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, you can get a free listing analysis at marketingbyemma.com/free analysis. Also on our website, marketingbyemma.com, you can find access to all of our contact details. We're happy to answer any questions that you have and help in any way that we can. And if you also just want to geek out more about a lot of these topics, I also have a YouTube channel, which is at Marketing by Emma, and you can go and dive into all of the different strategies so that you can get a deeper understanding of how to really build a competitive brand in today's environment.
Awesome. Check that out, everybody. And also, you just did some recording with the Amazon ads at the Accelerate conference. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we there was a group of us that were selected to help them launch a new tool, which is currently waitlist only, but I think it will be available to the public soon. It's a really exciting addition to the creative studio and the ads creation. Not just using AI to create ads, but to really think strategically. It's pretty exciting, and I'm excited for people to get their hands on it. So
Very cool. I appreciate you coming on and sharing these little nuggets of gold here. Thank you very much, Emma.
absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting me, Pasha, and good luck, everyone. I hope you all have a killer Q4.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. See you on the next one.